for having me. And it's actually a pleasure to be on here today, really. Tribe Growth Africa. So the interesting part is, Leke, hi, good evening. Uh, anyways, I mean, before I came on this call, on this conversation, I and Esther were just talking, just sort of like we have a background of history, how long I've known her and everything. So I had no idea that, you know, she works with Lakey, right? Who is like the co-founder of this brilliant initiative, So I just got to find out about this whole arrangement, like just a few days when we started, just kind of like started talking about what we're trying to do here tonight. So I really just find that really interesting. And I just want to say that it's really like a pleasure to be on here this evening. And yeah, um, it's good to meet everyone as well. And yeah, so this evening we just want to get into it, like Esther said. I feel like talking about community management or talking about community building is just a lot, really. I mean, I don't think we can use 1 hour like to just exhaust everything there. But I think what I would just try to do is just focus on a few things that I think that are really important. Just sort of like gives kind of like a context or like background, and also speak from my own personal experience as well. So yeah, thank you once again. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, Leke. Such a small word, really. So I have a slide, and I'm just going to be trying to share that slide with us, like just kind of like have a presentation. And apologies for my lighting. I kind of like have poor lighting in this evening, so I just hope you guys can see my face, yeah. So I'm just trying to do that now. Um, just let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, great, 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 great. Yeah, so we just want to like lay the groundwork, the actionable tips to launch your path and flourish as a community manager, and that's what we just want to like talk about. But yeah, before we just get into it, let's just do like a quick vibe check, and sort of like just get feedback from you guys. So when you hear the word community, what comes to your mind? What's the first word that comes to your mind when you hear community? I mean, I would like this to be as interactive as possible. So if you can just drop a chat, like drop a comment in the chat, or unmute yourself and speak, I mean, that would be fine. So let me just hear from you guys. What do you think about community? What's the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word community? Uh, so I'm sharing my screen. So I'm not able to quickly see the chat, but let me see if I can. People, right? A lot of people, right? Yes. Any other thing? Caleb said a lot of people. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so another question for you is, what do you think a community manager really does? And then another one will just, what's one thing you are currently obsessed with? Could be a song, food, Netflix show, a habit, anything. Okay. So looking at the preview, okay, comments, people with shared values, yeah. Deborah Peters. A group of people with similar interests. That's correct. People with similar interests, yes. Right. So I think, yeah, everyone is correct. I think at the core of it, essentially communities people, really. So I mean, everyone is correct. So another question that I wanted to ask was, What do you think a community manager really does? Any thoughts? Because my assumption and my guessing is some of you already like are community managers already doing amazing stuff in the community space. So what do you think a community manager really does? Energy. Okay. Great. Great, 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 great. Okay, let's get to our final vibe check. So, okay, should I go first? What what's one thing you're currently obsessed with? Could be a song. Yeah, so for me, I'm watching. I recently would not, I wouldn't say like I'm obsessed with, but I think I watched a recent Netflix show recently that really just got me. Just having a lot of thoughts. I think for a very long time I haven't been able to watch a show that really like just speaks to me so much. I don't know if any of you have seen Adolescent anyway, but that has really been right. So anyways, I don't want to talk movies tonight, but yeah, that's one thing I really watched recently that I really okay, current obsession. I'm trying to read a comment. A comment. Okay, okay. Someone said food, food. Food. Okay. All right. That's great. Okay, I just want to like briefly just introduce myself again. Thank you everyone for contributing and just dropping your comments. I think everyone your responses are great. Um, so yeah, a brief about myself. I think Esther already introduced me earlier on the call. Um, but yeah, my name is Cora and Cora Nazenga. And Esther, you did a very good job pronouncing my surname because I get that like a lot of people struggle to pronounce my surname. But he actually tried, Cora Nazenga is my name. And I often kind of like get this vibe. People ask me, are you actually from Nigeria? Yes, I'm actually from Nigeria. I'm very much Nigerian from Benue. For those of you who care to know. But yeah, Cora Nazenga is my name. And currently I lead community operations for UVES, and UVES is a real estate company. And formerly, I led community operations for other brands, built community for a brand called Assembly Hub. Assembly Hub, we're playing in the fashion and art space. Branded More is a creative agency. I led community for gaming. So gaming is a startup, it's a tech startup, Web3 startup around gaming. And then RF Garden is a hospitality business, and then Imaginary is a creative agency. So my experience kind of like just cuts across different industries basically. And I'll say that I have 7+ years of experience building digital and in-person communities, right? I know one of the questions I was asking earlier, what do you think about community? What's the one word that comes to your mind when you think community? And a lot of you said people, right? So yeah, that's true. At the core of the community is people. But we have types of community. We can do online communities like we're gathered here, having this conversation, right? This is like a virtual community. But apart from that, we still have like physical communities as well. So yeah, and then from gospel center spaces to startups to tech, hospitality, and real estate is the experience that I have over the years. And I have a training from London Interdisciplinary School, and I'm actually a proud Arsenal supporter. A lot of people who know me closely can tell for sure that I love Arsenal. And yes, for the record, we're going to be winning the Champions League this season. And yes, I'm a global fellow of CMX. CMX Hub is one of the, for those of you who don't know, CMX is one of the platforms that are playing very big when it comes to community building, community management, really. You guys can check it out, CMX Hub, and Google it. You can search them out, and I have a recommendation, I think, during my presentation as well. So yes, that's just me in a few statements. And once again, it's a pleasure to have everyone here. Um, so yeah, why community management matters really? Why community management matters? Um, a lot of people feel like community management is just one new thing that had just happened. in the last few years, right? But and I beg to differ a little bit, right? Community has always been there. Of course, it's agreed that we have a better structure. A lot of people have, there's more awareness about it and there's more accessibility as well. But community management or community essentially is something that has always existed, really. Like I said, community management may feel new, but it has always existed. Think about churches, right? Think about cooperatives, classrooms. You had classrooms, you had class monitors, someone who sort of is responsible for just overseeing the things that happen within the classroom. That's the community, really. As long as that class is concerned, that's a community. Think about churches, the people who are leading churches. It has always existed. Then think about like cooperative organizations, right? So community has always been there. But yeah, like I said, digital era has kind of like given it structure. Thank God to the digital media, right? Using Google Meet right now to interact, to have this conversation. So thanks to the digital era, which was kind of like giving it more visibility or like more structure. And also it's a new defined role in tech, creator economy, social impact, and beyond. So like Esther said during the introduction, yeah, it's a non-tech career choice or career path now. It's not just one of the things that people do, right? But before now, people didn't really think about community like that as a career choice, as a career path. So yeah, today we have community management as a career path, which is a brilliant way of thinking about it, right? So yeah, it's now a defined role in tech, creator economy, social impact. And like I said, it's not just tech, right? People talk about like, oh, I want to transition to community management. Great, but it doesn't really need to be within tech. There are several industries that can play within. Like during my introduction, when I was trying to talk about myself, I sort of like spoke about that briefly, where I've had experience across different industries. Could be tech, could be social impact. I even said churches as well, so you can actually be a community builder within a church, gospel center, a lot of things around that, So yeah, I have a couple of quotes that I really love when I think about community. So community is no longer a nice to have, is a fundamental part of how businesses operate and grow today. Yeah, so in my saying, I'm saying community is not just in tech, is a way of doing business right now. It's no longer a nice to have. For me, the way I look at it is a fundamental part of how businesses are operating and are growing. So one of the people that I really, one of the voices in tech that in community building space that I love so much, David Spinks. He wrote a fantastic book called The Business of Belonging, and that's where I got this quote from. So humans don't also mind hardship. In fact, they thrive on it. What they mind is not feeling necessary. This is a quote from Sebastian Junger from a book called The Tribe. During our icebreaker, we're talking about how that when we think about community, we're thinking about people, right? And at the core of it, this is exactly what it is, right? People want to have a sense of belonging, having that sense of belonging. And if a business are begin to tap into that human need, communities will thrive organically, right? So yeah, humans don't really mind hardship. We have always thrived regardless of the hardship that we have, But what's the most challenging thing is when we're not feeling like, okay, we don't have a sense of belonging, we're not feeling necessary or feeling celebrated. So creating that sense of belonging is what community does, right? So when we are able to create that, that feeling, is highly psychological. When you give that sense of importance and belonging is how communities kind of like thrive. So yeah, it's one quote. When I think about communities, I think about this quote. And one thing I also wanted to say, like another quote I really love is community is built at the intersection of consistency and care. This is a fantastic quote from PC Timmy, who is the founder of Founders Connect. I don't know, I'm sure some of you have heard her. She's building a brilliant network, a community called Founders Connect. So yeah, so those are some of the quotes that when I think about community, I kind of like just think about really. And then I just have like a global, should I say like snapshot, some data around community, trying to understand what community really is, or some things that you need to also have at the back of your mind when you think about community. So on this data on my slide, I have some key data here, also just key information here. 86 of companies say community drives business, according to CMS. I spoke about CMS earlier. 86% of companies say community drive business and value. 86% is a great, like, it's a huge, huge figure. It's beyond average. This is like, we can almost say 100%, right? So if the business value, like if community is driving value by 80%, we can almost say that community is one of the most important things that business owners or people in business should begin to think about. And everybody should begin to adopt community as a way of doing business, really. So think about brands like Apple, Tesla, Duolingo, Notion, Figma, OPay, Piggyverse, Karuwai. Some of these brands that I've mentioned here are great examples of communities fueling product and service. I'm sure these are brands that some of you have probably heard about before now, And one of here's the average. Okay, yeah. Just on average salary of a community manager globally is 68,000 per year. That's like a statistic done by Glassdoor by 2023. And then also remote opportunities have grown by 60% in the last 3 years. So like, thinking about a career in community management, I know that a lot of people think about this with like, oh, I'm looking for remote opportunities. I'm looking for what I can do that will give me, like, I will have the privilege to be able to like work remotely. I thank God for the age of digital media, right? I mean, a lot of organizations and companies are adopting remote work, right? But what are the career paths that can allow you to be able to like work remotely, right? So yeah, community management or community building is a fantastic, career choice, a career path that allows that to happen. And over 60%, we can see that in the last 3 years. So yeah, a quick activity before we just get into it. Based on the example shared, who can just share? Maybe like you can drop it in the chat if you want to speak as well. How do you think OPay build community loyalty? Because one of the things I said here is brands like Apple, Tesla, some of the brands I mentioned here, OPay is one of them. Are sort of like great examples of communities that are fueling product and service loyalty. So who is able to just give an attempt, just a response based on your thinking, based on your understanding? What do you think OPay has done to kind of like foster community or like to drive community? Or what do you think, sort of like driving the success of OPay or creating that loyalty that everyone is talking about? I'm sure everybody who's on the call knows OPay or who has probably used OPay. So like, if you can just share that with me in the chat, or maybe like unmute yourself and just speak. I just want to hear your thoughts. Yeah, cashback. Someone, Khaled. Does anyone want to try? Does anyone want to try? Okay. They brought banking to our doorsteps. Yeah. Right. Great. Oh, I think my screen, I was sharing I've stopped sharing. Let me share my screen. I have a slide. Yeah, so these are great. I mean, I'm looking at the comments, I'm looking at the chat. These are great yeah, feedback. These are great things to say about OPay. And all of the things that you guys have said is true about them. But I really love to, like, when I think about OPay is one brilliant case study. And when I think about like global brands, one of them is I mentioned Apple and Tesla. And then locally I think about OPay. For me, Apple especially is one company or brand that sort of like understands community. Before, one of the things I was saying earlier was it feels like community is just a new trend. Everybody is talking about community building now. But a lot of organizations who are on the global playing on the global stage, like Apple, really understood this. And they've been able to like create that community of users where it's a thing of it's sort of like a thing of we versus the other people. If we're not using an Apple product, we're just having this sense of feeling left out. That's what community does. Like that's the psychology of it. I don't know if they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen a scenario or a case where Apple have actually like created like their marketing with brand ambassadors, or like done influencer marketing. One of the things that they do is they use that they leverage their community to promote or they market their product. So yes, we're going to go into the details of some of the things we need to understand about community. Also understand that community is not just a marketing tactic. One of the things I always say, but it's a great tool, it's a great vehicle to be able to like sell or like to promote your product. So you just need to have like that understanding at the back of your head, right? So Apple does that fantastically, and then Opay as well. So yes, thousands of like so one of the things that Opay did was agent network. What other brands, like I mentioned PiggyVest and Cowrywise as one of the fantastic brand in Nigerian brands who have really like leveraged community to like promote or do business or to create brand loyalty. One of the things that PiggyVest, for example, or Cowrywise did was to create what we have like campus ambassadorship. That's a way of kind of like driving community. So one of the things that Opay did was agent network. They kind of like created what is called Opay agent. Thousands of small kiosks act as small cash in and cash out points, creating jobs and creating trust. At the end of the day, we spoke about community being for people, like communities of, at the end of the day, bringing people together, helping them to have like a sense of belonging, having that, that tight-knitted community. So one of the things that Opay did was to be able to like have that agent network, which sort of like brought about, creating a lot of thousands of, kiosks or cash points and all of that. Agent now became brand ambassadors, spreading word of mouth adoption. So it was a very easy way of sort of like, pushing their products, to the users. Another way of thinking about the way Opay went about, community building is localized market, using Nollywood stars to kind of like understand the market. We're going to go into the details of it later, some of the things I need to understand about community. And I can come back to this particular slide, to talking about the 4 Ps of community. One of the things that you need to understand about community is like, what's the purpose of what you're trying to build of that community, and who are your target audience? And I think in terms of Opay as a case study, they really understood that. And they knew that who are the people who are trying to adopt, to use that product, to adopt their product and their service, really. And they knew who to target. Who are the people, who are the influencers who are going to use to promote their product and run ads? And I gave an example. I don't know if you can see my screen, but I gave an example here. They ran street campaigns with branded tricycle and all of that. And then also like the hustle culture appeal. Everybody wanted to use Opay because they could, like, if I look at the number statistics, like in terms of Nigeria as a country, we are not, I mean, I'm I'm tempted to say that let's like Nigeria has a lot of money, like a lot of Nigeria, like money in Nigeria, but come on, majority of Nigerians, average Nigerians, are broke, really. So the appeal for Opay was like, we're trying to make this accessible to anybody at all. So they kind of like, promoted, kind of like, created that narrative or that promotion to kind of like fit everybody to be able to like adopt and use it. So that hustle culture appeal was something that they also drove to, So let me just not dwell so much on Opay as a case study, but it's just one example out of many. So some of the brands in Nigeria who have kind of like used community as a driving tool, as a vehicle to be able to like, propagate what they're trying to promote and their business. So yes, common misconceptions, some of the things that when you think about community, a lot of people think about community and what community is not really. One of the things that some of the things I said here, people say community is just social media or it's another marketing tactic. Yes. So another disclaimer I want to say is, I'm not saying that this is no. Community can be all of these things, but community shouldn't be reduced, or community management shouldn't just be reduced into just being any of those things that I mentioned here. It's not just about social media. Your role as a community manager or understanding community building is not just you trying to be, another social media manager to like post content or create content. You're not just, if you're thinking content alone, you're thinking social media alone, you're just limiting that. And I think I'm someone who is like, I kind of like advocate for this a lot, that people, a lot of Nigerian businesses and brands should get to understand better what community really is, right? Are we trying to do, sometimes these days when you see people advertising for jobs and roles, they say you're looking for a community management. When you look at the roles, the things, the descriptions in the roles, you see that, oh, what they're actually looking for is a social media manager, really. So, but how have we been able to like get it so wrong that we're kind of like reducing community management to just being a social media, manager, really? So yeah, that's one thing. Some people have think about social community management as a side hustle or as a part-time job. Yes, it can be that, but if you really understand it, you see that being a community manager entails a lot. You need to wear a lot of hats, right? We're going to get into that shortly as well. So if you're going to be thinking about it, that, oh, I'm doing this, I'm a data analyst, right? But I want to be a community manager, you might be actually burnt out, because community management is a full-time career path, right? So it's not just a one-off, it's not a side hustle like a lot of people think about. So I don't know if any of you can, have come across some of these misconceptions, some of these things people talking about, like, community. So also you need to like be an extrovert to excel in the community space. Yeah, so this is another one. I think I've met people who talk about like, oh, so community management has to do with people. I'm not so good with people. How do I go about it? Like really, like how am I going to excel in community, being a community manager if I'm not an extrovert? Well, a simple answer to that would be, well, I'm not an extrovert as well, but I've been in community for a long time. And yeah, uh, I don't really like to talk about so much about my wins and everything, but I've been in this space for 7 years and I'm not an extrovert. I'm actually highly introverted, right? So I'm a good example to say that you don't have to be an extrovert to actually excel or to be a community driver or to build community, really. And then some people say that it's all vibes and there's no structure when it comes to like community building. It's just vibes. But if you have ever tried to bring people together, you can say for sure that it's not just vibes. You have to put in structure. So the another misconception is community is just for brand hypes. I spoke fantastically about like OPay, some of the brands that I mentioned, Tesla, Piggyverse, Cowrywise, name them, all of these brands, right? But it's not just about hyping the brand. There's a lot of work. Before you see all the successes that we speak about some of these brands, there's a lot of community work that has gone into it, bringing the people together. How do you even get these people, acquisition, to get the people to even drive all of these things? So it's not just the hype, it's actually real work. So it's just one of those misconceptions. So yeah, I want to ask you again, which other one have you heard of? What other misconception have you ever heard about like community, building community or being a community manager? What do you need to do? What do you need to focus on? What's one misconception that you think you've heard that's kind of like popular? Anyone? So you can actually drop vibes only. Yeah. Any other person? All right. Okay, let's move on. So now we've spoken about like the misconceptions, really, but what community management really is. What exactly is this about, really? So yeah, I think earlier on I mentioned David Spinks. And so by one of my favorite definition about like community management is the work of designing spaces, experiences, and structures that help people connect, share, and grow together around a common purpose. So I feel like the definition is already like self-explanatory. Like it's about spaces, it's about creating experiences, it's about putting in structure. Like we spoke about it in misconception. People think, oh, it's just vibes. But you cannot thrive on vibes alone. You have to create structures. You need to create routines. You need to create what I call rituals, community rituals. that help people to connect, because you can't just bring people together if you are not creating systems for them to connect, right? So this is one definition that I really love so much. One thing I also say about community management isn't just about moderating conversations or growing numbers. It's about, facilitating relationships, empowering members, and building an environment where people find value and belonging. Take, for example, Tribe Growth Africa is about value. Why we gather, why we're doing what we're trying to do. Obviously, the community exists. They've identified the needs of the people, and they're trying to create that. How do people get into tech, right? What are the other roles in tech that people don't know about? How can they spotlight some of these roles, right? That's the value, identifying that value and trying to create. And that's why the community kind of like exists. So we're bringing these people together to be able to like create these conversations, have these sessions where we kind of like speak to each other, right? So that's, value. We're trying to facilitate relationships, empower members as well. When you're bringing people together, you want to set them value, create an enabling environment as well, And then a good community manager is like a gardener. They don't control every plant, but they create the right environment for growth. So you as a community manager, your role essentially is trying to like nurture. Like I said, like a gardener, you just need to like nurture. Your own role is how you can, the thing that we spoke about, like what community management is, how are you thinking about creating value, right? How are you thinking about creating the right environment? How are the people you are bringing in going to feel safe for the environment that you're trying to create? What are the objectives? What are the goals? How are you able to like facilitate the relationships? How are you able to like, empower these members? Of course, you're not going to, your role as a community manager, you're not trying to like force everybody, but you're trying to just nurture them. So I always say that a good community manager is like a gardener. And yeah, who a community manager should be and do. A community builder breathes life into brand. This is one thing I said yesterday. Through events, partnerships, storytelling, experience design, and etc. For a community manager, you need to create the kind of moment that kind of like, people can remember. People can not just, how are you creating these sessions? Like creating like, how are you bringing people together to create a memorable experience for them, really? How are you able to create advocacy for brands? That's the role of a community manager. So the way I want to look at it is, a community manager really needs to be a generalist. One of the things I didn't speak so much about, like in my introduction or when I was trying to talk about myself, is I sort of like have a background in marketing. So how did I now become a community manager, right? We can get into that later on, right? So marketing is just one form, is just one aspect of, so if you have a background in marketing, is an added advantage, really. So at the end of the day, what you're trying to do, what you just need to have at the back of your mind is you're trying to create stories for brands. You're supposed to like create a partnership, create events, create experiences at the end of the day. So you just need to have skill set across board to be able to like glue these people together, create these experiences that people, these memorable experiences that people can, and relate to as well. How are you able to like spark advocacy? I spoke about OP earlier, I spoke about Piggyverse, I spoke about Carrywise. I'm sure these are brands that some of you have already heard about. I spoke about Apple. People who are using smartphones, like iPhones, it almost feels like it's a very natural way of marketing their product. They just want to, in fact, these days there's a thing of around like classism where, if you're using a certain Apple product, you just want to, let people know that you're using this particular product. So they've been able to do that, that's what is called advocacy. You're already indirectly, they're already subtly like making you advertise their product without telling you to advertise their product, really, So I spoke about Carrywise doing campus ambassadorship program. That's right, that's community, that's a role of a community manager. How do you think about creating something like that to be able to like get people involved in it? What community management really is. So we spoke about the misconception is, and yes, thinking about community management, this is what I think about, like a mix of empathy, creating systems, storytelling, and strategy. You just need to be a people's person, how to be able to like, relate with people as well. At the end of it, at the core of community building or community management is how you are able to like tell stories, create empathy, and create systems. It's about people, it's about structure, really. And then your job as a community manager really is to build trust at scale. All the activities that I'm trying to talk about here is how are you able to build trust for the brand? How are you able to build trust for the community you're trying to build, really? How are you to get the people to be together? Really, that's at the core of it. That's exactly what community management and community building is. And I like to say it kind of like lives at the intersection of marketing, product, customer experience, and support. So all of this, like I said earlier, is how sometimes I use to say, oh, maybe community management is like sort of like a jack of all trades to an extent, really, because we're sort of like the house boy who's kind of like moving about doing almost everything with the end goal in mind of bringing people together, making them stay. All right. So you are marketing, you are promoting the product, you are offering customer experience, you're offering the support. You are creating value for the people. You are trying to make them stay. You're trying to, communicate value to them. How do you even see value? How do you even sell that value? Those are the things that a community management, like community manager, really need to, focus on, have at the back of their minds. And then yes, so speaking about in my introduction earlier, I was talking about like, this session is just about talking about community, but again, and a little bit about my own personal story or my own journey as well. I think one of the things I said earlier was you don't need to be an extrovert to actually be a successful community manager. You can, be a community manager if you actually like have the right tools and have the right training to kind of like understand better what community management really is. So for me, I kind of like started with local creative communities, volunteering across like different industries. I mentioned some of the brands that I work with, Imaginarium, which is a creative hub, Assembly, but essentially the journey kind of like started from just volunteering and they shifted to other brands as well. Tech, Web3, I mentioned Gamic, and then currently Uvest. From there, sort of like understood how do you now build system and train teams and then create ritual. Speaking about ritual, is the program, the thing that the activities that you do that sort of like keeps the people together. Don't forget one thing that we should not forget is about communities, about people, is about bringing the people together, it's about keeping them. So how are you able to create these rituals, really? And then the key wins for me, we were able to like onboard over 1,500 people, realtors at Uvest, which is my current role. I spoke about Uvest being a real estate company. How are we able to drive growth for Uvest as a brand? We want to be able to onboard realtors, right? Who are the people who are going to sell real estate for the company, really? And so the more people you get into the community, the more people sell for you, right? So in the last 3 months, we've been able to like onboard up to 1,500 people. So when you see the brand not really like spending so much on running social media ads, which is just one aspect of marketing, what is actually driving return on investment or driving growth for the brand is actually the community aspect, which a lot of people don't talk about. Remember, one of the things that we spoke about earlier is we say 86% of brands in today's market or today's business world is using community as a driving force, as a driving factor, right? So yeah, a lot of businesses and brands need to think community right now. One of the wins was deepening brand loyalty and participation through Assembly's creative class. Onboarded over 20,000 users using through Gamic, on Discord, Telegram, form partnerships with brands such as British Council, So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is community management is not just when we spoke about the misconceptions of community management, you can see that it just transcends a marketing tactic, but also trying to form partnership with brands. What's your vision? What is your goal? What you're trying to do versus where you are and what you're trying to do. What are the other brands that are doing things similar? How do you bring them together? Right? How are you trying to like form some of this partnership to like drive what you're trying to do at the end of the day? So one of the role for you as a community manager is how you're thinking, onboarding people to be part of your community, right? To create value for them, but at the same time, you're also thinking partnership, you're thinking events. This forum, this call is one practical example as well. This is a forum, right? This is an event, in a nutshell, right? So how are you trying to do all of this simultaneously at the same time? Those are the roles of, a community manager. So yeah, going into the 4 Ps, I call it the 4 Ps of community building. What are the core things that when you think about community building should come to your mind? You should focus on really. I call it the 4 Ps of community building. And yes, in our icebreaker, we spoke about what first thing that comes to your mind when you think about community. And yet, the first one is people. You cannot talk about community building without people, really. It's about people. Know the people you are building for, the personas and the needs. Tracking back, when we're speaking about OP as an example, as one of our case studies, in building community, one of the things that OP understood was they understood the needs of the people that they were trying to build for, right? And that kind of like informed their strategy into go to market strategy. What activities were they meant to do to get the kind of people that they're trying to get, right? And then we speak about like purpose. Why does this community exist beyond metrics? What is the purpose of what we're trying to build really? What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to bring the people together in the first place? So defining your purpose is one of the very big, should I say, like foundational pillars of community building. You speak about programs. In my previous slide, I think I spoke about doing partnerships and programs. I spoke about rituals, conversations, check-ins, and events. What are those activities that you are doing to like get the people sticky, glued together at the end of the day? Then I speak about processes again as one of the P's of community building. The tools, the systems, the documentation, and how you can scale really. So yeah, these are the 4 P's, pillars of community building. I think let me just slow down a bit. If there are any, so I'm not able to. Let me look at the chat. If you have any questions so far, is there anything you want to say? Any feedback? I'd love to hear from you. I think I'm moving very fast, so
Sorry, I didn't hear. What did you say last, Cara?
Oh, okay. No, I was just asking. I'm saying. I think I'm moving so fast, right? So I wanted to like get any feedback. Is everyone here? Can anyone hear me? Do you have anything so far that I've said? Anything you want to say?
Yes,
I'm already
we can
getting.
hear you.
Yeah, we
Right.
can hear you. I was just thinking we'll take questions at the end of your presentation.
Okay,
If we
great,
have any. Yeah.
great.
And we're following too.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next point, which is like, if I were to start today in community, what are the actionable tips to like launch your path, like start out in community building, like how do you become a community manager? How do you start? Where do you start from? And stuff, So yeah, one of the things that I said here, start where you are basically. I always say that if you really just want to understand better about community, join a forum, right? Be a part of a community to also understand better. That's a very basic way of starting out. So join an interest-based community. Volunteer to like manage a WhatsApp group. And okay, I spoke about church being a community. A lot of people don't talk about that, right? Can start from church, an interest-based group, interest-based communities. For example, for me, one of the things that I'm kind of like very much into the open source space right now. When I sort of like, I've been in community space or building community or managing community, but I didn't really understand what open source is. So one of the things I did was where do I even start from if I really want to understand open source? So I identify a few communities in the open source space that were kind of like very practical. And that's what I did. I kind of like volunteered or like just join. At first of all, just to join, to just be a part of it, just to learn what's happening. GitHub offers a lot of communities in the open source space. There are a lot of them. And then one of the things that I say here is offer value before you ask, volunteer your skill. Again, let me just track back a little bit. So I didn't really just start my career like being a community manager, right? I wasn't tagging myself a community manager. Like I said, I have a background in marketing and communications, right? And when I sort of like understood that community management or community building is another career path, my question was, how am I now transitioning from that marketing into like being or like all around like being community manager in that sense, right? So what I now did was to first of all volunteer to actually understand, right? So I didn't have an offer. Nobody offered me a job to be a community manager in any of the brands. I first of all started by volunteering, and I sort of like did that with social impact space. One of my friends has an NGO. I decided to like I'm trying to transition into community management, right? With the experience that I already have, with the knowledge that I already have, with the skills that I already have, what can I do to bring these people together to do the work that I'm trying to do, right? So yeah, volunteering there. One of my friend again from church ran a community called Grow in Tech. So Grow in Tech, something similar to what Tribe Great Africa is also doing. Grow in Tech was essentially a community for teenagers who are trying to get into tech, right? For mostly like technical roles, right? And they wanted to be able to like bring people together. How do we now identify the audience that we're trying to capture? So I kind of like volunteered myself there to like, okay, how do we now bring these people together really? So yes, how do you start? Offer the value before you ask, before you look for a role. So you volunteer yourself, your skill. What skill do you already currently have? How can you use that skill to bring about community development or building based on the things that you already heard me say about community tonight? My guess or my assumption is you already understand that community management is not just social media. There's a lot that goes into it. So based on these things that I've said, how do you now offer to help based on the skill set that you currently have, right? Another thing is documenting everything, keeping record of growth, engagement, and what you learn along the way. So for me, I would say that, yeah, this is a great way of trying to start out, right? But for me, I would say that it's one thing I never did. And should I say like I regretted never doing? Because I feel like it's sort of like I have a role, I have the things I'm doing right now in the community space, but the growth would have been better, would have been faster if I was documenting my process. The people that I volunteer with, the things that I did, I wasn't vocal about them so much. I didn't really document my growth or my transition and all of that. So what I would definitely recommend is when you're trying to like start get into the community space, you just need to document everything. And you just with where you are really, like I said, start from where you are and just whatever thing that you have come across, whatever training that you've given, you have access to. For example, you have this session, this is another great platform to like, you can say, okay, you are part of this community. This is what you do. You document that process. Every session that you join, people want to be able to see that. Employers want to be able to see that. Potential employers want to be able to see the things that you have done, the things that you've done, or the things that you can do. It's not just when it comes to documenting everything, it's about show or don't tell us. It's about like what you can show. Yeah, I think I have over 7 years of experience in this space, but I think my portfolio, I literally had like an official portfolio as a community manager in 2023, right? So that's such an interesting one. So yes, definitely I recommend document everything. Build in public, yes, is that ties in together, documenting everything and building in public, leveraging your social platforms, the social media account to be able to like tell the story. One of the things I said earlier was, you as a community manager, you need to be a great storyteller. What are the things that you're involved in? So one mistake that a lot of people make is people feel like things need to be very big. You need to be very spectacular before you can make noise about it. You can say something about it. It has to be interesting. But trust me, if you don't make it interesting, if you're not really your own, should I say, your own motivator in that sense, nobody actually pays attention to that. It's just like the way people think, really. And I can give several examples of people who I really admire that work when it comes to like building in public, things that they do, putting out information publicly, documenting everything, their processes, and building in public, sharing their journey online. Recruiters notice momentum really, and then staying curious and just keep learning. And I spoke about your desire to learn as well. Every opportunity that you have, you just learn. Like ask questions, be in forums. If you are interested in being a part of, learn everything about ask questions around community building really, and be a part of communities that are. I spoke about CMX earlier. CMX is, for example, is a very good platform to really like understand what this career, what are the benefits that kind of like exist within that career choice, and the things that you can learn from that. So yeah, stay curious and keep learning. So I'm just going to say that again, just start where you are, offer value before you can ask, volunteer your skill. For example, I said maybe before you can define yourself, maybe like I said, community manager, what you do, maybe like you're a public speaker, you are very good at speaking, right? You are very good at just relating with people, dealing with people, just bringing things together, organizing things, organizing events or like program. That's another skill set that you need as a community manager, right? That's what you can also bring to the table, right? And along the way, we're not picking up other skills as well. And then yeah, when it comes to so one question that a lot of people ask a lot of times is, as a community manager, what tools or what are the things that people can use or community managers can use to streamline their work processes, just make their work easier. There are several other tools that these are the ones that I personally use, right? For I use Notion a lot for my documentation. I spoke about documentation as one of the things that you should do to always try to document your process, the things that you're trying to do, and everything. Notion is a fantastic platform. Google Workspace, creating forms, Google Forms for feedback, collecting data. You just need all of that because one of the things that you can get, one of the ways, like metrics is a very big thing. And when it comes to social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of these social platforms gives you a way to be able to get metrics for the things that you're doing. But one question that constantly comes when it comes to community building, people ask the question of how do you track metrics? How do you, measure impact and all of those things, right? And those are the things that you now need to manually try to do. How do you carry out polls? How do you create polls? How do you get feedback? You're creating Google Forms. So I use Google Forms a lot to be able to get feedback from the people, from the people. At the end of the day, community is about people. So you're dealing with people. You want to be able to track the feedback, measure that metrics. What does that metric even look like for you? So there's one thing that you need to look out for. For community, you don't necessarily have, social media platform where you are looking at the analytics, this is how you have grown and all of those things, So at the end of the day, the growth of your own community is exactly what your vision is. What's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? So what does the success looks like for you? How are you able to track that? What's the metrics we are using? For tech platforms, maybe Discord, maybe Slack, there are other tools that people sort of use to measure those things, or Mighty Network, there are several other tools, right? But for me, when it comes to dealing with people, I feel like using Google Space to sort of track that metrics is a very fantastic way of doing that. And then of course Canva, if you're a graphic designer, yes, one thing that I also mentioned, as a community manager, you are a generalist, you are doing a lot of things, you are creating designs. And one good thing is you have some of these tools. Canva is there. You don't need to be maybe an experienced graphic designer to be able to drive a community, because some of the needs of the community is for people to create visuals, to create designs, to create presentations. How are you able to do some of these things? Canva is a great platform. And then Zoho. I use Zoho for planning on my tags and reporting. So how am I able to the things that I need to do? How am I simplify my work processes, the tasks that I need to carry out? Zoho is just one go-to platform that I use to be able to do that. I think we're already short of time, so let me just move on. Yeah, so final notes and some honest truth about community building, really. Some of the things I said here, community work is deeply human. It's not perfect. So yeah, one thing that people always ask is, how can you I always say that when you're dealing with people, it's always it's human, right? So you are never going to have that perfect, moment. What you just need to do is understanding the needs of the people and just doing your best in trying to serve them, right? So it's a lot of work. And then growth takes time. Focus on trust and not traction. And that's one thing that a lot of people are very bothered about. So when you are starting out, there's sometimes for organizations though, you constantly have KPIs or trying to okay, in the next 6 months, you are taxing to onboard 5,000 people to be part of the community. I know these things are real, right? But I always say that growth takes time. Focus on the trust. For me, that's the biggest way for you to scale up community. Don't forget that community is not just a marketing tactic. So if you're now focused only on the traction, you are doing marketing, right? But if you really want people to have that sense of belonging and become advocates for your brands, naturally, you focus more on building trust with people and not just the traction, really. So, and again, one of the things I was saying is one misconception I should have added there. A lot of brands in Nigeria are seeing community building or community management as a marketing, platform, as a marketing tactic. So they're kind of giving you work of a marketer as a growth marketer, marketing job. Not necessarily. I beg to differ on that. Your goal as a community manager is to build trust amongst your community members, right? So your goal or what you're trying to do, everybody wants to scale, no doubt. I saw that Grow Tribe Africa has scaled up to close to 1,500 participants in the community across board. That's fantastic. That's good, right? It's good to track measure growth and all of those things. But when you look back, the success of your community, what is the health of this community? Is it the numbers or the participation? Is engagement, right? So those are the things that you need to like look out for. So the success of the community manager kind of like focuses more on these things and not the traction. If you care, it shows. If you fake it, it fails. It's very natural. Like if you're trying to build trust with people, with the things that you're trying to do, creating advocacy for brands, it's going to show if you actually care. And if you don't care, it's going to show and it's going to fail. And you can start small. It still really matters. That's all I'm trying to say here. You just need to start from anywhere. Trying to be a community manager, you can start from anywhere. And your focus starting out, launching out as a community manager shouldn't really be about the big achievements or the big goals. You can start small. It really still matters, right? So yeah, these are the final thoughts when it comes to trying to launch out the community. And then I wanted to say about like community building. One thing that I always recommend is to read books, trainings, the things that you can. How do you expand your mind on the things that understanding people really? So one thing that I always try to do is to recommend books, recommend resources, podcasts, a lot of other things to just get started. So yes, one book that I always recommend is The Business of Belonging by David Spink. So yeah, in my introduction, I was speaking about being a member of CMX, a global member of CMX, right? So David Spinks is the founder of CMX. CMX is a brilliant platform, so you can start out with CMX. You can just check CMX out. But CMX are quite pricey, some of them. So they have like, under CMX, they're kind of like other smaller communities under that. So which kind of like have to do events that are paid. It's quite expensive, but you can get this book as well. It's definitely a recommended that you can start out with. If you really just want to understand some things better, The Business of Belonging. And one good thing about this book is not just community building itself, but also as a business owner, whatever business you are trying to build, you need to understand the business of belonging. This is not just for the community managers right now, but also for business owners, the people who are trying to build. If you are building anything at all, you just need to understand how people are the center of you, like driving the success of your business or whatever you're trying to build. So yeah, I think that comes to the end of my presentation and my talk. So let me just give this room for questions, general questions, some of the things that maybe you wanted to say, feedback as well, contribution, and questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Cora. Well, I know I'm not thinking of a career path in community management, but your presentation made it look like I should pot my tent, but no worry. I'm staying where I'm staying. I'm staying in my place. But thank you so much for that. Um, so my first question would be, okay, we have some in the comment section, right? But my first question would be,
Yeah,
can
go
you hear
ahead.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know I muted myself. Okay,
Yeah.
so my first question would be, what communities would you encourage upcoming community managers to join? Like, is there like a mentor protege kind of community that they can join, or program that you think is designed? I don't know, but I don't think there's like a course or any program that has the training called community management, or how to teach you how to be a community manager. So is there like a training or a community that you can recommend?
Okay, yeah, that's actually a great question. So I think that's one thing we don't really have. So communities come so let me even track it a bit. So community is actually very wide. So people have communities based on the things that are trying to. So we have communities in design communities, we have communities in a particular field, but generally speaking, if you just want to have like an overall view of just getting started in community, that platform I mentioned, CMX, is a very good place to start from. So just check out CMX. It's a very brilliant place to start from. And I think I'm going to recommend, I will share a link. Let me see if I can get it. Maybe before the end of this call, I will just share a link or just resources. Because what a lot of people have done is they've sort of like created resources online to just help you understand. You can read up, watch content around that, but having like a community space where you are being taught like day to day, like we're trying to do now, we don't have a lot of them. So I would recommend CMX, and then I'm going to recommend another one as well. Just give me. So most of them are not Nigerian based. That's another thing, right? But they are very. CMX is definitely one of those that you definitely need to like look out for. So what? Yeah, just to answer your question, Esther, I've said CMX is one great example. I'm going to recommend another one as well, but I'm going to share a resource.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's not CMS, not CMX. Okay, I'm just going to drop a link. Someone is asking for a link. I'm going to drop a link in chat.
All
CMX.
right.
Yeah.
I think we have like a couple of questions in the group, in the chat box. I have a question from Caleb Peter. It says, I'm a student, but I'm trying to pursue community management on Discord servers. Any advice?
Okay, so Caleb, so you're trying, let me read that. I'm a student, I'm trying to pursue community management on Discord servers. Okay, I mean, great. So Discord is, so I mentioned when I was talking about some of the tools and everything and the platforms, we have several platforms where you can start from or you can, learn more about. So one advice I would say is what where are you currently with Discord? What understanding do you have with Discord? Do you know the platform very well? And then like I said, we have platforms like Mighty Network, which is another platform where people use to like launch their communities. Discord is a fantastic one for a lot of tech. So I'm assuming you are very much into tech because a lot of tech products or to tech users use Discord as a platform to like build their communities. My advice is plug into Discord, understand Discord very well, like understand the platform itself, right? So because you cannot manage something that you don't understand, right? So just play your way, like just do your research around like Discord basically, right? And when you understand that, because a lot of times when people have, even sometimes you had a skill set of, okay, you are a community manager really, but because you don't really understand the usage of a particular platform, it's now hard for you to get a role because that's something that one thing again that maybe I didn't really touch so much on in my presentation is the platforms that community platforms, right? There are several of them. So how are you hosting your sessions? How are you hosting your meeting? People use different platforms. There's one called Circles. There's one called Mighty Networks. We're using Google here to hold this conversation, right? People use Discord, right? So do you really understand Discord? My advice for you is understand the platform before you can manage the platform. Yes, I just dropped the link to CMX now.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have somebody that said they were already on CMS, is already taking a course there. Then Nathan is asking, can the
Okay.
same method be used to manage a virtual and physical community? I think the methods you mentioned in your presentation. So I think it's asking, can those methods be used to manage a virtual and physical community? Or Nathan, do you mind to explain what methods you were referring to so that we
Yes,
understand you?
I was just going to ask that as well. That Nathan, do you want to speak? Are you referring to a particular method?
Or you can also
Hello,
type it
Nathan.
in the chat.
You can just
If you
yeah.
can't talk where you are, you can still type it in the chat so that we understand your question. From the method listed. Okay, you said from the method listed.
I'm going back to my methods.
Is it the 4 Ps of
4P.
community building?
Nathan, I'm still trying to understand your question better.
I will just wait for him. I think I have one person. While we wait for Nathan to give us a feedback, Adedayo, is it Adedayo? Someone's hand was raised up just now.
Yeah,
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah,
Good
hi, good
evening.
evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Cora, for the presentation. That was quite enlightening. So I have just a question to ask. So I want
Okay.
to ask that let's say for an organization that is just
Right.
that's trying to set up that's trying to build a community, maybe an online community around a particular theme or a particular area of interest, what would you recommend as the channel or the platform to use? But I know that I've been seeing organizations building communities maybe on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I think others use other platforms. But from your own experience, which channels or which platforms would you advise are quite effective for something like that, that would enable you to manage such communities very well, ensure that moderation is properly done, and that is very quite flexible enough and quite effective for managing such a community? What platforms
Right.
do you think would be advisable?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, I think my response will still be in one of the things that you said in your question, the most effective, right? So in one of the P's is, what is the purpose of the community? The pillars of community building. What is the purpose? Who are your target audience? Who are the people you are trying to get across to? And when you identify some of this, when you do your mapping and you see this, that you have identified all of the things that I've mentioned, you now know, based on the things that I've said or the things that you have figured out about the community you are trying to build, what's one platform that you think is mostly accessible, right? So it's not just about the fancy service. Like people just underrate WhatsApp. Or I'll tell you for free. Uvest, for example, we're using WhatsApp, right? I'm using, well, like my community, we're using WhatsApp for Uvest to onboard tribe like Realtor, right? So we have different WhatsApp communities. I think WhatsApp allows to have 1,500 in a group, right? So we have different groups like that. I kind of like having an aggregated WhatsApp like community. So it's easy. And we're trying to do that with, and our target audience for UVS is like mostly Gen Zs and millennials, right? Who are like students on campuses and everything. We're trying to like push real estate to young people. And for them, WhatsApp is, everybody has a phone now, everybody has a WhatsApp. So imagine trying to build a community on Discord, because the truth is Discord allow you more users. So there are other advantages of some of these platforms, right? You can, as mentioned about gaming, when I was managing the community for gaming, which is like a Web3 platform on gaming, we had over 25,000 users, right? We could not do that on WhatsApp, right? We want like, so, and most of the audience were like tech savvy people who really understood gaming, right? They're kind of like tech inclined. So it was easier to use Discord. So, but for a community like a real estate company who is trying to just get many people, whether you are learned or not, whether you are savvy with tech or not, WhatsApp is a fantastic platform. People use Telegram as well. So for me, my response or my answer to you would be focus more on the needs of the people, right? Not just about the fancy platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Okay, I think we have one more. If Nathan can respond, that's fine. We have another question from Ikechukwu. It says, thanks, Cora, for the presentation. Please, how do you try to manage bullying experience in a community?
Okay. Okay, Nathan, so you are clear now. I really wanted you to get to ask your question, right? But it's fine. Okay, Ikechukwu. So for every so like one of the things I said earlier, we cannot exhaust talking about community in 1 hour, right? There's a lot of things to talk about, but the one very important thing when you think about community management, there's a governance policy. When for every community there should be, should I say like some level of governance? What kind of like guides the community, the rules? I call it some community rituals as well. What are the things that we agree that we can do? And what are the penalties? Communicate. One thing with community building or managing communities, you must be not aggressive, but like a very clear communicator. And let your communication be very clear and just keep emphasizing some of those things. So what are the things that you have laid down as the governance pillars of your community, the one you are building? So in terms of bullying, right, if what you're trying to bring people together at the end of the day, right? So, and if people are bullying, is one thing that you are definitely not trying to tolerate. I mean, you're just going to have like, so I give one is, for example, we've had, I was speaking about like, having a community like WhatsApp community where you have a lot of realtors. And one of the things that we said that we are not doing in that community is do not share promotional materials from other brands or conflicting brands. We want to be able to inspire everybody, teach people about real estate and all of these things, right? But these laws are there. Every morning, what happens is one of the ritual for the communities every single day, because new people are being onboarded every day. You are dropping these reminders before every other message goes up on the channel. So you are constantly reminding people of the needs and the penalties. These are the needs of the community. This is what you're trying to do, and these are the penalties. So clearly communicate. I shouldn't be the one to define or come up with a penalty for faltering on a particular thing, right? But the point is constantly clearly communicate the things that you're trying to communicate, and the things that you can tolerate, and the things that you cannot tolerate. So we said that these realtors do not share promotional materials from other brands that kind of like do the same thing that the brand that I work with does, right? And the thing and the rule there is don't do it. Do it once is a warning. Do it twice, you are kicked out. So yeah, clear. You are trying to bring people together, but don't forget that you have a goal in mind. There's an objective. So anything that's going to come in between you coming to the end goal of your own objective, then you have to cut it out. Right. So yes, I would say that bullying, have a conversation, have warning, but you cannot tolerate it. It's going to drop the energy of your community member. We don't want to demotivate. We don't want that energy to feed off people. Don't forget that this is about people and it's highly psychological, right? So that's what I can say to that. So I don't know if I've been able to answer your question. And is there any other one?
From my end, I don't have any question. I don't know if we have any other one in the community, but I want to say thank you, Cora, for coming to the African Growth Tribe. Thank you very much for your time and for pouring into us. This means even if it's 1-2 persons that live here inspired to be better community managers, I think the mission is accomplished, the deal is done. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone that joined us. Thank you to Nathan, Janet, Ikechukwu, Zubeiru, Leke, Abisoye. Abisoye, big shout out to you. Thank you for reaching out to everybody in the community. Thank you to Adidaya. Thank you to Faith. So thank you, everyone. And do enjoy the rest of your evening. I will stop recording now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.